Welcome back, folks. Get a grip on lighting live from HortiCann Light and Tech in Denver, Colorado. This live stream episode is brought to you by Keystone Technologies. Go to KEYSTONETECH.com, baby. That's KeystoneTech.com. Light and made easy, Greg.
Just do it.
Just do it. Just listen to it. Get it going. Okay, today we have Corinne Wilder, Wilder, Director of Global Business Operations, Fluence Bioengineering.
That's it.
And we got John Wilson, Strategic Products Manager at the Lighting Design Lab. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thank you.
This space, the horticultural space, I've seen kind of two previous boom and bust cycles. We're in another cycle now. There seems to be momentum behind this. You got academia behind it now. We just had an interview with Dr. Matson about sort of the combination of what needs to be done in order to use LEDs to grow, and then how cannabis is leading the way. Is it going to be another bust, or are the cannabis growers actually going to adopt LED horticultural lighting systems? What do you guys think?
Oh, I mean, we're absolutely seeing rapid adoption from Fluence. On the LED side of things, I think we just need to get past this black eye that we have in the industry. And a couple of the speakers already alluded to this morning, where they're talking about that now with the new chip technology that's coming out, some of the new ways to go about the lighting design, some of the new software that's being used to actually show people and prove out the technology. Now we've got about 5-6 years under our belts of actual proof of technology and data. Yeah. A lot of other organizations like Resource Innovation Institute and Glaze that are coming out with actual reports and studies that show that you can get enhanced production, you can get better efficiencies. So a lot of the data, a lot of the published publications and reports that are coming out now are really showing that there's a solid proving ground now. And just from, like you said, universities going back and actually doing research with photobiology, photomorphogenesis, the yields that are coming out, it's ramping up big time.
Yeah, from your side, John. I agree with my esteemed colleague here. With cost compression, it's really the only place I see for the market to go. Certainly, we're going to have folks hanging out using incumbent legacy technologies for a long time, but I just don't see any path forward with cost compression. Folks are going to have to get smarter, and that means trying new things. I think it's a little counterintuitive that with cost compression, people are going to have to make this capital investment, and that's still the biggest barrier for most folks to get there. But the legitimate publications that are coming out, and just the wealth, the treasure trove of data that is just pouring out, not just from academia, but I think from the growing community itself, is really building a bridge and getting us past the first and second generation, maybe I'll call it just, generically black eye that was well deserved when there was just, anybody could crank out a product, and they were, and matter of fact, they still are. And this is actually going to be one of the things that I think we have to keep an eye on, is this potential for backslide as capital cost remains a huge issue. I think people are going to continue to seek out cheaper alternatives. How can I beat that? There's a lot of growers, farmers. This is not unique to cannabis. This is cultivation everywhere. They're very resourceful. They know how to get things done. They know how to put parts together, and they want to fix things themselves if they can. And so I think there's a DIY component out there that almost scares me a little bit. But that said, there's just a dearth of really reputable companies that are on the market. They're doing great work. And certainly I can say in the last 2 years, I feel like we've really pivoted, turned a corner, and like Corinne said, really starting to see traction with legitimate products on the market. That's supported by not only utilities throwing their weights behind it because they feel like I can trust this and get behind it, academic research to boot. It's all starting to come together.
Well, and that's part of what our panel's about today too, is talking about what research has been done, but also what standards are coming out to help enforce this too. So the DLC released the QPL earlier this year. That's the qualified products list that you have to go through rigorous testing in order to get on that list. You have to have 5-year warranty. You have to have a ppf over a certain amount of efficacy over 1.9 micromoles per joule. So there's a lot of different things on the market now that are kind of proving grounds and resources that people can go to go find technologies that more reputable.
It's funny because some of the issues in the horticultural space, one of them was standardization. I saw on the board that you can't really compare products. There's no metrics to compare them by. Like there's no, and this is happening with DLC. But it seems like the issues in the lighting businesses in general are on steroids in the horticultural space. It's like they're amplified or made worse. Or they're for lack of a better term, shining more light on it. We had talked a little bit about earlier when I wanted to get you. We had talked a little bit about artificial electric light or artificial light and indoor plumbing and toilets competing as the two greatest innovations of humans and the ones most taken for granted at the same time. I think part of the problem with the horticultural lighting space is that people have a hard time seeing light as part of a production process.
Yeah, absolutely. If we treated it the same way that we treat machines,
yes, it's a machine
we would come
in this case
from a totally different paradigm.
Yeah.
But it is something that's so easy to take for granted.
Yeah.
That's one thing I love about the horticulture lighting space versus the commercial lighting space, because I've been in lighting. I was adding it up earlier this year, like 13 years now. I've been in lighting from Panasonic and now with Fluence Bioengineering. And in the commercial lighting space, you can talk about enhanced productivity for your people that are in the space and try to quantify
very carefully talk
very
about
carefully.
that.
Yeah, exactly. But then you go into horticulture lighting and it actually, through photosynthesis, you actually get a product that you can quantify and put costs and ROI to. So you're actually producing something with the light that you're using. So photons and photon efficacy rate is something that is very, very vitally important, along with HVAC, irrigation, the whole ecosystem, really. So looking at that whole ecosystem of horticulture and the growing process is a really important part of just understanding what part and portion lighting plays in that.
So to back up a little, what is Fluence Bioengineering? And then you're next, so be ready for the design lab.
Yeah.
But let's start with the Fluence Bioengineering.
So Fluence Bioengineering is a company that was set up by Nick Clace and Randy Johnson back in 2014 as actually BML, Build My LED. In 2016, it morphed into Fluence Bioengineering. So we are strictly horticulture lighting, and we're meant for commercial lighting too. So it's applications that can be deployed in greenhouses, indoor. We have the Spider, Viper, Razor Ray lines, and these are everything from propagation to, I think our product now is 1700 ppf for our Viper 2P. So it's very high efficiency and high power LED lighting for these commercial applications, and we focus on broad spectrum too. So it's white light for this space.
It's a white light opportunity.
Influence. So last year in July of 2018, we were bought by Osram, which is a $4.5 billion company based in Munich, Germany. So we've just been growing leaps and bounds since around 2016.
So you're a manufacturer of horticultural lighting products. Okay. And then Lighting Design Lab, I know I've heard it.
Lighting Design Lab. We are an applied research lab. We look, feel, and smell very much like an independent nonprofit. We are actually proudly a part of Seattle City Light. My paychecks come from the city of Seattle, even though I proudly live in Portland, Oregon. We really work with products where the rubber hits the road. So we're not doing deep R&D, way downfield theoretical stuff. We're taking products that are ready to go, that have all these awesome claims around them, and we're saying, well, let's test this out. And oftentimes, whether it's horticultural lighting or just commercial network lighting controls, that sort of thing, there are so many gaps and growth opportunities from the time a product actually comes to market to, what was it supposed to do? Did it perform that way? Did the users get what they think they were getting? And can we build a feedback mechanism into that to maybe make the process a little better so that that information is getting back to manufacturers? So we're very objective and independent in the market. We are totally agnostic as far as brands and that.
Except that you love Fluence. That's it.
I'm not afraid to go on the record saying this. I told Corinne last night at dinner that I'm lighting manufacturer fluid. And non-binary.
Not binary in that respect.
Really can't get cornered. it's a great place to work because, you know, it sounds generic, but it's the classic, a rising tide raises all ships.
Sure.
And, you know, you said earlier, I'll piggyback on that comment. You said it almost feels like we're on, you know, there's like the standards development process is on steroids because we're catching up because we've been operating, for lack of better words, kind of in a self-imposed, you know, with our heads a little bit in the sand.
Sure.
And
a little Wild Westy.
It's kind of
a
taboo.
little Wild
yeah,
Westy.
still.
And consequently, one of the vestiges of that I think is still very much with us is not every grower and certainly not every LED horticultural product manufacturer wants to embrace a common set of standards, because one of the things that makes them unique if you're a cultivator, it's you've got a special approach, and if you're a lighting manufacturer, they'll tell you they got a special approach. And so it's really interesting to watch this play out, and it's a little paradoxical, and there are some tensions I think that reveal themselves. But it's not unique to our market. We are just a little bit, it's nascent and new to us as we work through this incipient stage. But I think that's part of what makes it so exciting to be in right now.
Now, who actually has to listen to your standards?
Well, you know, that's a great question. I mean, you could point to the DLC as an example and say, well, they're a paper tiger. It's a feckless. You know, they can't enforce these. They don't have, you know, they don't get to come down. They don't carry a heavy stick. But I think it really speaks to where the industry is going and to the.
It's not a standard. It's an accreditation. That's a different. DLC is
or a certification.
It's whatever. It's not a standard. That's a
good point. Thanks for clarifying that. I think it still is very meaningful when companies voluntarily step up to this, because they say we see the mutual advantage.
Sure.
And while certainly some companies out there say, I am going to keep being different by telling everybody I'm different, I think the majority of companies out there say, you know what, I can still create a distinction for my product and my class, but if I'm not a part of that list, if I'm not on that list, then that's going to have a negative consequence, as opposed to, no, I'm special, I'm different. And that's a good thing. It's going to start being like, well, why aren't you? And there's still legitimate conversation to have. I'll go on the record.
The argument for no standards is the innovation argument, right? We don't want to conform to a standard because we want to allow for more innovation. I would say that assumption is flawed. And I'll tell you why. The best poetry ever written works within a certain set of rules, and you have to obey the rules.
Iambic pentameter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You have to write in iambic pentameter. Okay.
Or the couplets are my favorite.
When I have fears that I may cease to be, right? You know, this kind of stuff. Beautiful poetry has to be written in iambic pentameter to a certain set of rules, or it's not beautiful.
I mean,
poetry.
In the Western canon, certainly.
Yes, in the Western canon, sir. You want to go out? We can change topics if you want.
I'm out of this one.
But no. You know, the most innovation, the most rapid innovation, like literally Moore's law applied to it, was the 4-foot LED tube. First time I saw it was like 2010, $80 a tube. 2019, you can buy it online from TCP for $4.68.
Yeah,
and it's way better, and it performs great. So rapid innovation, cost coming down, this sort of stuff. Why? Well, the form factors are set. Has to be 1 inch thick. Has to be 4 foot long. Has to have double bipin at the ends. Sure. After that, it's up to you. Right? You set a few rules around the outsides of the form, the factor, the fit, these types of things, and then you can your innovation goes where it matters.
Yeah.
Not on what kind of connector do I want on the end of my tube. How thick do I want my tube? No, all that, you're told what that is, and then you do your innovation where it matters on the light inside the tube. Well, so rules help innovation. Standardization helps innovation.
Sure, I agree.
Yeah, definitely. And so does application, because, I mean, from the different applications and really finding the correct intersection between cost and what the customer is wanting. So if the cheapest thing for a customer to do is a little 4x8 tray for their propagation, that's 4 or 5 levels high, because that's the cheapest thing that they can get off Amazon.com. A good idea is maybe to try to fit into.
It's a little boutique online store.
Yeah. Don't worry, you'll catch up.
Yeah.
But to fit into that, because that's what customers are looking for, or to go into a greenhouse and to understand that fitting underneath the truss, so you don't take up extra space and you're not creating shadows when you're trying to capture the most efficient light that's out there, which is sunlight. You can't have a LED fixture that's sitting there and casting shadows on your grow. So to fit under the trusses is another important thing, to just understand the application that you're going into and what the customers need so that you can get the best impact out of it. So understanding current application and then fitting into that application.
What does the customer want to buy?
What does the customer want to buy?
Sell it, then figure it out.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. So
Yeah, it's hard.
I want to ask you guys something. So one of the things I've learned from this, so first of all, I've interviewed a lot of PhDs in the show over the scientists, and one of the things I know is that we don't really know what light is. Like we're creatures of the light. We're spiritual beings. I'm looking at your light shining at me, right? There's a sense of that.
Thank you. Right there in my eye.
That was like smashed
right in my eye.
So, but we don't really know exactly what it is totally. And there's people that would say Culligan's wrong, but no, if you talk to a true scientist, they'd be like, yeah, you're kind of right about that. And in a way, we swim in light, like an aquarium of light. We live in light like fish live in water in a way.
That's beautiful.
It's very beautiful. This is the Western Canon.
Yeah.
So, but you know, it is true. It's like in a way, we're like fish figuring out we're in the water in a sense, right? And we know that, okay, natural light, good. Right, we know some things that are good. We don't really know. I find that in the horticultural space, what light is and how it works is being studied the most intensely here.
Oh, it's
more than the circadian people. You know, it's really like you guys have data. There's like points. You have results. Things are growing. You can make the stems thicker. You can make the stems thinner. You can make the leaves broader. You can make the thing flower faster. Like people are really studying light and its effects in the horticultural space. And like what you said, right on the front lines, right on the where the not and the physics. Philosophical, physical sense, but in the front lines, how do I make these buds get bigger? I want to get more of that sativa in there, baby.
Yeah,
you know,
juice it up.
Yeah, come on, man.
Love it.
Like, am I right about that? Do you guys find that the horticultural space seems to be really studying what light is more than these other areas?
Yeah, because you can see actual effects. I mean, there's Wageningen University over in the Netherlands. There's Guelph. There's McGill University. Dr. Mark Lisfrud. There's Yuban Zhang from University of Guelph, Leo Marsalis over at Wageningen University in the Netherlands. Like these guys are all doing majorly impactful work right now. And a few of them spoke at our photobiology conference that we had just a couple weeks ago at Fluence. And this is talking about, I mean, the impacts of UV wavelength, the impacts of blue, extra blue, how much red contributes, what's light outside of PAR. So you've got PAR, which is 400 to 700 nanometers, but then you've got BAR, which is biologically active radiation, which extends even further into the UV and far red. And what does that do to the photomorphogenesis of the plant?
Yeah.
And so all of these different, very specific wavelengths can impact and contribute where if you have, it's kind of funny, there was like a talk about specifically 420 nanometer wavelength and what that nanometer wavelength did for the plant. And it was interesting because there was a dichotomy of if you did this wavelength and then this wavelength and then you combine them together, the three different examples gave you three completely different effects and results in plant photo and quality afterward. So it's really, really interesting to study that, and even on that very minute level, what it means and what it can trigger within that plant.
That's interesting.
You know, just for the sake of driving the conversation and not agreeing always, I certainly agree with all that, but
point and point. We want a counterpoint out of you, man.
Yeah, disagree with me.
Come on, John Wilson.
I feel like Joe Buck wearing this headset right now. I'm going to be Joe Buck for Halloween.
There you go.
I'm going to wear a carpet.
Yeah. Good idea. You're all set.
Check. So I'm going to say I think we're living in the bubble. We're living in the bubble. We're at a freaking horticultural conference. We're drinking the horticultural Kool-Aid. It is amazing, but it's like we're freebasing the horticultural Kool-Aid, for crying out loud. I mean, so I'm going to say, it is a dynamic of the human condition that we lead with all the stuff that we know and what we think we know because it seems a foot or two ahead of us.
Yeah, presuppositions lead the way.
But,
for sure.
But, when I think about the effects of light and human health, circadian rhythm and all that, these are developing in parallel. And I think one of the biggest leaps that we've taken, speaking broadly, is the acknowledgement of how much it is we don't know. We have learned very much in the last
I
few
couldn't
years
agree
that
more.
there's so much. We thought we had this pretty locked down, and it's like, wait, it's 2019 and we're still learning about new ways that the light receives light and how that's processed and how it affects our bodies. And I would point to, just as an example of how this is proliferating in our lives in other ways, I mean, your iPhone update that shifts the light, throughout the day into, a less blue spectrum. It is developing in parallel, I would say, with where horticultural lighting is. Horticultural lighting is so exciting, especially in the cannabis space, because it feels like we're finally bringing science, real science to it, instead of doing it in our basements. And so there's this massive catch up that's happening. And secondly, the cannabis plant is absolutely an amazing, phenomenal plant that grows in incredible ways and is unbelievably responsive to these different things that we throw at it. And we are really just in the last few years, maybe decade, starting to track that and document it and learn from it following the actual scientific process. So we can be forgiven for freebasing the Kool-Aid because we're all living it and we're all right here. But I would caution against saying that it's like leaps and bounds ahead of where human health and light is. And I'm not a technical expert to speak on that, but I wouldn't ignore that. That is playing out, and I think that there's 100 more years of science at least in front of us where we're going to continue to learn about. Well, stuff.
It's interesting how humans behave, right? So let's say you say electric intelligence, because I don't like the word artificial intelligence. I think that's a bad word, because if it's going to be intelligent, it's going to be real. It's not going to be artificial. So let's say they make an electric intelligence, right? Think about how smart your brain is, right? So right now, your brain is digesting your lunch. Did you tell it to do that, or is it just doing that on its own, right? Like your brain is doing that, right? It's having your kidneys clean your blood, and we're just sitting around here, and maybe we're gonna go consume some THC later tonight. We are at cannabis con or whatever, and our brain's gonna synthesize that, and along with maybe a couple beers and watch a movie. Like when you think about how intelligent our brain is and what's actually going on, you're right. There's so much more to learn.
Absolutely.
About light and about everything, but about, particularly about light. There's something about light that is so obvious to us in one sense, and then but also so deeply mystical in another way. So I think we're just embarking on that journey. And when you kind of at these kind of events, you encounter the tip of the spear, but there's a whole spear behind it, and there's a lot going on, and you're right, in human health and that sort of thing. So, I think we're going to let 20 minutes is about right for a live stream. Corinne and John.
Yeah. Thank you very much
for coming on the show. John Wilson from Strategic Products Manager at Lighting Design Lab. Did they have a website you want to throw it for the peeps?
They got a website. Yep. You know what? Just Google Lighting Design Lab.
That works.
Yeah.
There you go. And Corinne, Fluence Bioengineering. What's the website?
Fluence.science.
Fluence.science.
Yeah.
Go check them out. Folks, thanks for listening. And who is our sponsor on this one?
This one was Keystone.
Go to KeystoneTech.com.
Check them out.
That's KeystoneTech.com. Sorry, Josh, I forgot you sponsored it again, but I know you're watching. So you're good, buddy. Light made easy, the Retrofit Kings. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.